Good morning and welcome back to the Monday Morning Murder Podcast. I am your host, Faye Fire, and we are so excited to be here with you all this morning. We are here to discuss season 3, episode 3 of Yellowjackets, which is called Them's the Breaks. And I am here with my lovely co-host, too sexy for Mandy, or is it for Monday? How are you this morning, my dear? Oh, you're muted. Hold on. It's coming. We're gonna find out. Okay, there she is. There she is. How are
I
you
mean,
this morning, Mandy?
hi.
Are you
Good.
too sexy for the mute button?
All I know is there's no way I'm disco dancing. Not this morning. But yeah, thank you for
Well,
having
neither is Mari or Coach Ben. So,
me. I mean, hey, I would love to see Coach Ben with the three-legged man on the dance floor. That'd be great. Sorry, the three-legged man, the wooden-legged man. I mean,
hey,
he might have three legs too. We don't
we
know.
don't know. We don't know.
We don't know.
Paul might be, having the good life.
He's already blessed. We see the wilderness is blessing him, so who knows? Anyway,
Indeed,
I
indeed.
mean, what kind of man needs that many condoms? We see. So anyway, that was not how I expected to start the podcast, but we're here. Good morning, everyone. Hello, you fellow Yellowjackets, citizen detectives, all my favorite people. I am excited to be here and put the brakes on episode 3 and get into it.
Awesome. Well, we are so excited to be discussing this episode. This was just a really exciting episode. I was actually really looking forward to this episode in particular, just because the number 3 is so kind of relevant to sort of the spiritual aspect and kind of the druidic stuff that's been going on in season 3. And so season 3, episode 3 is just a very exciting number to get to. And I knew it was going to be full of just a lot of kind of weird, maybe spiritual sort of things, and it definitely did not disappoint. The episode itself was directed by Jonathan Lisco, who is one of the co-executive producers, and it was yes, and we love him. I know you, freaky Jonathan. And it was written by Ashley Lyle, Bart Nickerson, and Jonathan Lisco. So our kind of big 3 creators for the show. So I just knew this was going to be a really exciting episode. Before we jump into it, Mandy, do you want to read our episode description? Let me just pull it up.
No,
Oh, wait.
that's what I've
No,
been dealing
not
with all day. No, of course I do.
yet. Let me just get this up
Yeah.
and going.
Well, we're bringing it. Let's say good morning and welcome to Taylor 26. Let's get ready to rumble. Little Rose, Cece, Miss Duncan the Tall. She's always our girl. Morgan Spears, Galactic Biatch. Guys, thank you for joining us. Glad to have you here. First time joining live. So welcome her to the Citizen Detective crew. So them's the breaks. A hostile reunion ignites chaos among former teammates. Teammates. Mates. I've been watching some New Zealand type stuff on Netflix. Anyway, well, Lottie's behavior gives Callie unexpected insights into her mom's dark history. Meanwhile, Ty and Van face consequences for their past actions.
Interesting indeed. There was just a lot of crazy stuff going on in this episode. We have so much to talk about, and we're going to try and not go for, 3.5 hours like we did last week. Of course, we had 2 episodes to cover last week, but we're going to try and pack it all in. So I hope you guys have had your coffee. I hope you are ready to listen and just hear all the vibes and hear the wilderness, because it hears us. There's just so much to dive into. So I just want to knock out these kind of first things first. And normally I have Mandy, we didn't really talk about our song of the week, but I just automatically I made an executive decision.
Yeah, you knew it. You
Okay.
knew. Erin and I are best friends for over a decade almost. So we, she knows all of my favorites. And 3.5 hours does sound great to me. Listen, Wilderness chooses. It chooses. Okay. We always say this. And whenever you say it is when we do longer, okay? I just want to
It
say.
it's very true. That's very true. Yeah, so, I don't know, I just felt like this was such an excellent needle drop. This has been, like, the needle drop moment of the season so far. I mean, I don't know if you guys and granted, there were some really awesome songs in this episode, like, I really loved, "Nookie" by Limp Bizkit, and, there was another one that I really enjoyed also.
Yeah. I don't know
Um,
about the needle dropper because come on, Virtual Insanity and Fiona Apple last week. All I'm
it was
saying
just the timing of the song drop, you know?
is
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And it's the Cure. Come on. Like if you are in this chat, I'm pretty sure all of you are Cure baby, are Cure people. So
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, so I was excited to hear that. I've been listening to that song, and I just felt like it was such a perfect moment for it to happen, and then just kind of like the vibe of the song, this sort of betrayal moment, especially because it was Nat and she's like, holding the gun, and then they dropped the song, and it was just like because Coach and Nat, they've had their kind of friendship going on, and so yeah, it was just a little bit of a moment when
yeah,
that happened. So I don't know. We
maybe
have so much to talk about. We'll kind of save that. Of course, that's the ending of the episode, but
maybe
I just was really kind of obsessed with that needle drop this week. So
yeah.
we'll see what's gonna beat it for the rest of the season, but I'm loving it so far.
That's very you too. Maybe we need to add like a betrayal of the week or like the play of the week. So and so steals this. Shauna steals the necklace. Play of the
Ooh,
week. Ooh, or
interesting.
something
Yeah.
like that for the soccer funness or like
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like let's play that back.
Randy for the save, bringing in pig guts. Allie almost was murdered.
Totally. Okay, so you guys, so there was obviously just so much spiritual symbolism going on. There's obviously a lot going on with the girls at camp. Obviously, they're dealing with a lot on their own, like especially with Lottie, and Lottie stayed behind for kind of the search to go search for a coach. We had a lot of the Greek symbolism going on in the adult timeline. So there's just so much, and also in the teen timeline because they kind of have this descent going on. So we just have so much of the symbolism to talk about. We probably won't focus, too much on like the details of the episode. I mean, of course, we're gonna weave them in, but like I just have a ton of symbolic stuff to kind of discuss with you all today. So um I wanted to start because, there's been so much of the tree symbolism and all of that going on. I have mentioned this book a couple of times. It's called The Celtic Tree Oracle. It's actually a divination set, like an oracle deck or what have you. But I don't really mess around with the cards as much, but I really love the book a lot. It's just got a lot of really cool information about the trees and like the Ogham alphabet, and which is all connected to the trees. It's like basically your like druidic alphabet and that kind of thing. But we've been talking so much about the stuff going on with Travis and with the trees and sort of what's going on in the wilderness. So I was like, I know this book is going to have something in it that I can share with you guys that you can learn from. So there is a section that I wanted to read to you. Should we just do it right off the bat and kind of get it out of the way so that we're all on the same page, so to speak?
I think yes,
Um,
because otherwise it's going to be in your head. So let's get it out of your little.
Yeah, and I think it'll kind of just help us all be on the same page of like what we're kind of discussing. So
Oh,
this is really useful. So it's going to be probably like a 5-ish minute of me just reading to you guys for just a minute. So, buckle up, you got your coffee, got your tea, got your hot chocolate, and we're ready for our descent. And good morning, Miss T. Good morning to everyone. Good morning, Mrs. Duncan the Tall. You're looking particularly beautiful this morning. Okay. So, all right. The three circles. So, two primary existences were perceived by the Celts: the Godhead, representing creative energy, white light, or the sun, and Kithral, representing negative energy, destruction, and blackness. In the beginning, there was nothing but God and Anun, the spirit world. Organized life began by the word. Organized life began by the word. God pronounced his ineffable name, and the man-red was formed. This was the primal substance of the universe. It was conceived as a multitude of minute, invisible particles, atoms, in fact, each being a microcosm, for God is complete in each of them, while at the same time, each is a part of God, the whole. This is like, anyways. Yeah. The totality of being as it existed were represented by three concentric circles. The innermost of them, where life sprang from a noon, was called a bread and is the stage of the struggle and evolution, the contest of life with Kithral. The next is the next is the circle of Gwyneth, or purity, in which life is manifest over a pure rejoicing force, having attained its triumph over evil. The last and outermost circle is known as Kugant, or infinity. Here all predicates fail us. This circle, represented graphically not by a bounding line but by divergent rays, is inhabited by God alone. I'll show you guys this picture. It's kind of like a ray of sun. And there are a ton of like Celtic symbols that, I mean, just tons, like countless. And I feel like the symbol might just be kind of a nod to that idea. But, anyways, I mean, having like symbolic purpose and like pulling from the threads from it. But yeah.
Well, they had also we have all of the camps set up like a circle, and then when they were playing that chase game after the piece, they ran into the circle, and there was like a rejoicing, symbolic joy of the
That's a really
chase.
good
Yeah,
point.
so
Mhm.
very interesting.
Hmm. Okay, so the basis of Celtic creation is therefore a trinity. The construction of these interlocked circles of existence as well is well explained by a passage from the Bardic treatise Bardas, which is in which Celtic teaching is explained by questions and answers. Bardas was published under the auspices of the Welsh Manuscript Society in Llandovery in 1862. Forgive my pronunciation, I am not Welsh. Okay, so it's sort of presented as a Q&A in this section. So whence did thou proceed and what is thy beginning? And this is kind of like reminding me like if you were questioning the wilderness or something. I came from the great world, having my beginning in a noon. Where art thou now, and how camest thou to where thou art? I am in the little world, whither I came, having traversed the circle of a bread, and now I am a man at its termination and extreme limits. What wert thou before thou didst become a man in the circle of a bread? I was in a noon, the least possible that was capable of life, and the nearest possible to absolute death. And I came in every form, and though every form capable of a body and life, to the state of man along with the circle of a bread, where my condition was severe and grievous during the age of ages. Ever since I was parted from a noon from the dead by the gift of God, and his great generosity, and his unlimited and endless love. Thou, how many different forms didst thou come, and what happened unto thee? Through every form capable of life, in water, in earth, and in air. And there happened unto me every severity, every hardship, every evil, and every suffering. And but little was goodness and Gwyneth before before I became a man. Uh, Gwyn, Gwynfid, Gwynfid, I'm not sure what that word means, cannot be obtained without seeing and knowing everything. But it is not possible to see and to know everything without suffering everything. And there can be no full and perfect love that does not produce those things which are necessary to lead to the knowledge that causes Gwynfid. So probably Gwynfid is like enlightenment. Every being, we are told, shall attain to the circle of Gwyneth at last. The ash tree, the cosmic tree, is central in Celtic mythology and also in Norse mythology, where it is known as Yggdrasil. It was seen by both peoples as the pillar linking the universe, running through all levels or lowest of existence, from lowest to highest and from highest to lowest, through past, present, and future, from heaven to hell, accepting only that the Celts did not conceive of the existence of hell, but believed instead that the soul passes from level to level in subsequent lives until it reaches the land of the blessed at last. Thomas Carlyle, the 19th century British historian and journalist, in his book on heroes and hero worship, writing about Odin and Scandinavian mythology, speaks of this. I like, too, that representation they have of the tree Yggdrasil. All life is figured by them as a tree. Yggdrasil, the ash tree of existence, has its roots deep down in the kingdoms of Hela or death, and its trunk reaches up heaven high, spreads its boughs over the whole universe. It is the tree of existence. At the foot of it, in the death kingdom, sits three Nornas, fates, the past, present, and future, watering its roots from the sacred well. Its boughs, with their buddings and disleaflings, events, things suffered, things done, catastrophes, stretch through all lands and times. Is not every leaf of it a biography, every fiber there an act or word? Its boughs are histories of nations. The rustle of the rustle of it is the noise of human existence, onwards from of old. It grows there, the breath of human passion rustling through it, or storm tossed, the storm wind howling through it like the voice of all the gods. It is Yggdrasil, the tree of existence. It is the past, the present, and the future. What was done, what is doing, and what will be done. The infinite conjugation of the verb to do. I find no similitude similitude so true as this of a tree. Beautiful, altogether beautiful and great. The nature of the three circles has been explained. The soul, being immortal, does not die, but travels through life after life, achieving ever higher positions. This explains much of the difficult Welsh poetry with its transformations between animal and animal. The principle of Trinity, once the cornerstone of the Celtic universe, then became the basis of the designs of the three-pointed knots and the manifold interlacing patterns, which are so exquisitely demonstrated in the Book of Kells. And then it goes on to discuss the five aspects, which I think are really important, but maybe we should wait until episode 5 to discuss those because I think they're really relevant to one character in particular, Travis.
Hey, what is the book again? Is because I'm googling it and there's a couple different versions, so I just want to share it in the chat.
So this
Show it.
it comes from a divination, like an oracle deck. It's called the Celtic Tree Oracle, and it's by Liz and Colin Murray.
Here, I got the link for Amazon.
And
Even
it
though
does have
I
like, if you're into doing like the card work, the divination work and that kind of thing, there are different like templates in there and that kind of thing. I'm just like not really into doing all of that. So um all right. So thank you all for listening to that. And I feel like it really kind of helps us understand a little bit more of what I kind of believe is going on, especially with the tree symbolism and with the wilderness. And we have so much of that symbolism, the above ground and below. And obviously we saw a lot of that um in this episode with the descent into the cave. And of course, this ties into Greek mythology as well with the Eleusinian mysteries. And we've talked about that a ton on this channel, where there is sort of a three-part, um, like, I wouldn't call it a ceremony, but sort of a ritual. What do we call it? What are we calling it? Like a three aspects of the Eleusinian mysteries, which consist of the descent, the search, and then the ascent. And we kind of saw all of that go on in this episode. And that has to do with the goddess Demeter and her daughter Persephone, and when Persephone is taken by Hades and descends into the underworld. And so this is all kind of, we've talked about this a ton on the channel, where it's all kind of about a reincarnation cycle, because that's what Persephone represents. She descends into the underworld. And of course, her mother is distressed about all of this. And so this is really relating to Jackie and Shauna. But it seems like it's kind of a recurring theme because we're seeing this again with Mari in particular. So many of those shared parallels between Jackie and even Javi, and then Mari, what Mari's going through, and even with what Coach is going through, because Mari and Coach are kind of, on a similar um place in their journey.
I'm close to death, I would say, because like all those characters are all like close or experience death. Or I think Aquila, which I mean, a lot of us are probably thinking this, is that she will be the next one on the chopping block, or death is calling her, the wilderness is calling her in a sense. Um,
Mhm,
and I think it was interesting to see the psychopomp type vibes. Like, why did they split the different directions? So you could
mhm,
see who was more of a sun and who was more of a moon, and who was more of the underworld and who was more of like the top of the tree at this particular moment during the
mhm.
harvest, the rebirth, and things like that. Because we saw Nat's rebirth and Thaisa's kind of rebirth in as teens last episode, I think. Um, yeah, it was really interesting, and I think, I want to, or we're probably going to make a video about that more and the
Yeah,
detail.
um, yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know. So we had Lottie, who was basically like, she's like, I'll stay behind. I don't, this is just a distraction. And so she doesn't feel like going after Coach or like pursuing that sort of justice is worthwhile. Like she believes that, the wilderness will provide or what have you. Like the wilderness will see its justice, done
Well, it was
in a
interesting
sense.
because in that dream sequence, she was there, and is that psychopomp thing where she's traveling back and forth, or is it kind of a two-figure part like Tree Tie, Fwig Tie, and Tie, where they have the difference where she might have some sort of alter, in a sense that can go down to the underworld, because she was not her normal Lottie self there. Maybe
Mhm,
that's that inner Lottie. That so in that dream sequence, which they were all brought together, and it felt like a judgment scene, like when you go to the underworld, when you go to the Bema Sea, like when you're in there and you're exposed, and you have the slapping, and you have like, are you going to make it? Or are you going to be chained? And
mhm,
Lottie there was very like judicial and very like her lawyer, not her lawyer, sorry, her therapist. Remember, we're like, is Lottie's therapist real? So is that
mhm,
like the therapist version of Lottie that she's like suppressed underneath her, like wanting to be a healing nature and saying that it's okay, and kind of suppressing all of those other evil and parts of the human nature? Because like,
mhm,
you think that this Lottie, the daytime Lottie, is very evil, but she's like really just searching for healing and answers, and I believe for a bigger picture for the whole group. Whereas like the other Lottie is more like, I don't know. It's something interesting to keep in track of. Are these the same Lottie, two Lotties, or was it just a dream? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of could be a multiple personality complex thing of her different
yeah.
types of what she wants to be.
I kind of interpreted her as like the teacher, her being sort of the wilderness prophetess or priestess or what have you. She's teaching the rest of the class, and there's sort of this um like we've talked about, like Jackie was there, the man with no eyes was also there, and he's the embodiment of death according to, the showrunners. And so it's interesting, well, number one, that they all saw the man with no eyes. So that's, that what does that tell us? But also uh that it she's almost instructing them like the wilderness is sort of a maybe a reincarnating energy, a reincarnating force or god or something like that, or even if it is connected to sort of more of the Celtic beliefs, which is, they speak of ascending levels in each of your lifetimes. And so perhaps that's what Lottie is trying to teach, and that's why she appeared to them, because the wilderness was trying to tell them that she is an important figure. They should listen to her. She's teaching them things. And then with what was written on the chalkboard, which was um, the of all the ways to what is it? Hold on, let me get over to my notes. Of course, my computer doesn't. Okay, there we go. Of all the ways to lose a person, death is the kindest. I don't know where. Yeah,
Yeah,
there it
something
is.
like
Of
that.
all the ways to lose a person, death is the kindest. So that's from Ralph Waldo Emerson. And which is interesting because he was part of like the transcendental movement. Um, which was like him and like Walt Whitman and Henry David Thoreau, and they were all like very nature oriented individuals, like surrounding themselves in nature. And then the transcendentalist movement was about finding divinity in nature. And so, and there's, uh, I can't think of the name of that book that Walt Whitman wrote, but he was like living out, on the lake or what have you. But anyhow,
This is
um,
a good comment here by Kelva. I hope I'm saying that right. Kelva.
Dream Dream Lottie was kind of like an amalgamation of how the 3 dreamers perceive her in their own way. Akila rightly with fear, Shauna with an unjust authority or as an unjust authority figure, and Van as a spiritual why can't I
Teacher.
see that?
Teach.
Teacher. Why is that not showing up on mine? Anyhow,
I like that
yeah,
she goes with the
that's
threes.
interesting. And it's interesting, yeah, that they share the dream, so that's kind of, another interesting idea. I kind of interpret the cave, like, despite the fact and I have so many thoughts about the cave, so let's kind of get into that. The cave itself, like, you know, it's almost like, is that the heart of the wilderness in a sense? Now, granted, it's obviously toxic and, it's putting off methane gases
The
and
lower levels though, because the cave itself was the heart and like the in between, the right just below where it grows. Like
Mhm.
there so to me I felt like where Mari and Ben were was like the cosmic egg of it, where they're
Absolutely.
growing. But
Totally.
like when you go deeper into it, you find that either rot or growth, but death is new life. I mean, and when you go into it and you find that gaseous, but I feel like they went and descended into way different parts than like the rest of them. This is not, and it was the only reason they were saved was because of Coach Ben. So I think that that's going to be a lot in the next episode. But it was, yeah, like this. They were being punished. They were being led, and they were being led by Shauna. Like Shauna was pushing it, and Van was like, "Here with the light, no, don't do it, don't do it." But as soon as Van crossed the threshold, the light, went away.
It was so foolish, like, the whole thing I mean, it was so foolish. Their light went out, like, what if the light had gone out, while they're crawling, and then they'd be completely I mean, the whole thing and granted, I love caving, like, I'm a such like, I don't know if you guys like spelunking, but I actually do. It's like it's really fun to me, and, exploring, like, creepy caves and just I don't know why, I just have that's always been something I'm into, and,
Shauna though
but
pushes it like that. That's what narcissists do, and that's what like. They do not care about anyone
well,
else. She's
and
she's
she's
in the womb
leading.
looking for her baby. She's looking for the Coach Ben because she wants justice instead of letting the wilderness do the justice.
Yes. Yeah, it's Shauna trying to control the situation and her taking the opportunity to be the leader. And so when she leads, that was kind of probably a sort of a microcosm of like her leadership, which I'm already terrified of because she is the butcher. And I just don't think having a butcher as a leader or a queen is a smart idea,
I mean,
personally.
she's being
Speaking
offered
from
the crown. She's being
mythology.
offered plenty chances of leadership, but she just doesn't want it. Like she doesn't want to co-share or be, help with other people or help with those things. She wants to take it for herself and like hide her real instincts, and they came out here where she just didn't care about anyone else. She just cared about going deeper, and I think that that's kind of a metaphor for Shauna as it is with her, where she writes in her journals the deeper feelings where she can never let out. So like here she is physically embodying how like how she feels.
Yeah, she's almost challenging the wilderness in a sense. where she's like, I don't, despite the warnings, despite my better sense, despite the fact that my light went out, I'm still going to push and push and push because nothing's going to beat me. Because even if, like, Shauna's had so much taken from her that it's just like she says to her baby, like, it's me and you against the world. She is up against the wall and she will fight anyone or anything that comes near her. She doesn't care. And so even if that's pushing against Mother Nature, or like, just these dangerous situations of crawling through a cave in a clearly like if she used her brain for half a second, she would realize like Coach Ben probably with his one leg probably did not crawl through here. But she didn't even take the time to sort of, evaluate the situation logically. She just kind of went with it. Now, I do think it's interesting that um after this experience, is it going to change how she feels about the wilderness because she's been so resistant to it so far? But what's interesting is in the trailer, there's a voiceover of her, and it might be from this next episode or in the coming episodes, of where she says, uh we give the wilderness what it wants.
Yeah.
It's her voice that's saying that. So it's like clearly at some point she's going to recognize that or honor that authority. And so I wonder if this experience was like, so perhaps maybe life changing for them, and how the three of them are going to react with Van and with Akila also, because I feel like we saw Akila kind of, I feel like we saw a different side to Akila when they were talking about going out into the wilderness, and Akila's like, "No, we have to." It was like suddenly like, "What? Where did that come from, Akila? Like, you're
Yeah.
like the gentle, like you're kind of a passive sort of
She
individual in this." And so I just found it really, shocking that it came from her.
Well, I do believe that she is the closest one to the wilderness, and I think that she knows and she feels her death near. Because like when you are close to death and you start to feel those kind of spiritual aspects and not be afraid to go, you're like, okay, it's my time. And I think that actually does fit Akila's character, because she's someone that I would imagine if in faced with death and she knew, she would be like willing and ready. She's like, okay, I'm ready to go. Whereas like Shauna's fighting it, not going to acknowledge it, not going to do it. And Van is like weary of it. But I think also that it is going to change them a lot. Like how we see Van in the future, she was ready to die, and facing that fear and going in there, the wilderness gifted her. Same with kind of Coach Ben with the food. And that's what, that's what God does in like to the Hebrews, and like when the jet, like they will turn and deny it and go, but like he'll forgive you 70 times 7, and he'll bring you up to a point. And it's like, how many times do I got to turn my head from me, or how many times will I turn you turn your head from what I've given you? Like she turned her head from Shauna, turned the head from the crown. She turned her head from every opportunity that was given to her, just to deny the existence and try to prove herself right, versus her actually just like seeing that everything presented is a gift from the wilderness or God, or everything presented to you is a gift, whether you want to see it that way or not. And even this opportunity. So, you have to go deeper to go higher, and you have to, climb the highest mountains to go to the deeper levels of faith as well. So I do think that this will make her start to believe. And that's a
Mhm.
great point that you brought up. Because when you're faced with death, and she was willing, like, I don't care, I want to die. But now that she was close to it, and then that seeing Jackie again, and being in fear of her choking and choking herself in a sense, that kind of, it will do a lot to you. It will do a lot to you. Choking
Yeah.
is like the breath of air, and which is like Holy Spirit, if or the spirit, like you breathe in through your nose. I felt like they were very reminiscent of the story of Ezekiel and the dry bones. And when you go on, he goes and he sees all these dead people around them, and they have to breathe in through the nose, and then they create the bones again, and then they create the structure of the human body and the sinews and like all the stuff. And it brings people back to life. So and then this whole circle, like what we're representing of in like just Celtic mythology and with the tree, and death becomes life again.
Mhm.
So to fully embrace death is when you become life. And then, back to Aquila, since she fully embraced it, I think she will, she's offering the new crowns. She might even be, for a moment, part of, one of the new higher exalted beings or higher exalted team members too, because she did face it like straight on.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think fans
Yeah,
were
there's
confused.
there's definitely a lot, yeah, to analyze. I
Yeah.
mean, with Aquila, um, and I'm curious to see how this experience is going to change her because she was like, to Lottie, she was like, "No, I'm good." Like, she was like, "Oh, leave me alone." And then, but is this
Mhm.
experience going to change her or make her more curious and bring her closer to Lottie, which could lead her to something else? Because I'm always brought back to um, that line that Nat said in season 2, where she says to like, "She's killed people. Her delusions have killed people." And so I'm always like, who's it going to be? Because obviously something, Lottie's weird spiritual BS is going to get her, get them into some sort of trouble. And obviously we see that with Travis already. He's kind of terrified from his own experiences, and Lottie just keeps wanting to push him harder and harder, bring him back for more. And we don't even know, like, he stayed behind like, what I also find is really interesting is he stayed behind at the camp while the others went off to go do the search. Um
Dude,
so
that made me think, like, so that he's the king. Like, that made me think he's such the antler king because he didn't have to do all the work. He's sitting there holding the goose, the golden goose or whatever.
look,
Um,
I don't want to get too far. We're going to save a lot of that conversation for next week, but I
yeah.
literally have a whole video written about it, so
So
we'll
okay.
have that conversation next week, but let's not get too far. But yes, I
Yes.
have those
This
thoughts, but we're not gonna talk too much about Travis today because he didn't really get too far in the episode, and we're gonna talk about him a lot next week. I know it.
well,
I know it.
let's go back to this comment though, because about her dream and how her dream was peaceful. Akila's dream was peaceful, relative. So again, she was there like a shepherd, taking care of the lambs, taking care of the animals, and then the llama, like talking. It's saying that it will get what it wants, and she just kind of goes back, okay, and being buried into it. Like she's just like, okay, you know what? It's gonna get what it wants. So I
See,
think,
personally, I thought Akila's dream was rather unsettling and had a lot of ominous undertones to it because, first of all, whatever the llama was saying to her, but secondly, she ate food of the underworld. She was eating those berries. They were a bunch of goats in there, which is
yeah,
like, sort of a like satanic sort of
or
symbolism or
she's
what
the
have you.
scapegoat. She's the scapegoat now.
Scapegoat, yes, and then with the llama, the things that he was saying were very ominous, where he's like, anything with teeth bites and what have you, and we know that's clearly a theme throughout this. I mean, that's the crux of the whole show. So yeah, it's a little scary to think what that could mean because we've seen these sort of sacrificial lamb figures, and it we also kind of can draw this parallel with Mari because Mari has a lot of that symbolism, like we said before, with she's kind of got a lot of parallels with Jackie, with Javi and their experiences, and then she went into the cave and then she also came out of the cave. And so there's kind of this interesting symbolism going on with Mari, and I feel like okay, without getting too far into it, I feel like the wilderness might be sort of toying with Mari and Aquila, like who's coming out on top on this one. And then the same goes for Coach and Travis.
Mhm.
Because it's kind of
That
like, okay, we have, who's the next going to be, but also like who's the strongest, who's the most accepting of the wilderness's, desires or what have you. Um, yeah.
Well, I mean, in sense of skills, Aquila is obviously more beneficial to keep than Mari, I think. But it's Aquila also, remember her and Mari and Misty, we kind of had as the Furies slash, the three eyes of the camp last in
Mhm.
season 2. And we talked a lot about that symbolism. So, they are tied, I think, the three of them in a sense.
Mhm.
Maybe it's going to be Misty that bites the both of them, and or or Yeah, Mari sends her instead, or the sacrificial lamb thing is very or scapegoating.
Well, and it comes back to the threes, the cycle of threes. So, that's so relevant to this episode. And then we talked about with the cosmic tree, how it has the three Norns or the three fates that sit at the base of it. And then of course we've also talked about from the Greek aspect of it, the we have like the triple goddess, but we also have the Eumenides, which I think is really relevant to what's going on with Coach and like his whole trial situation that they have going on. So the Eumenides are like the goddesses of justice, but they come from the underworld, and so they're really present in the Oresteia, which we've talked about that a ton. I don't want to get
I
into
mean,
all the details of it.
I feel like that fits them perfectly. Like
Yeah.
the underworld gas, and there was a comment also about the gas. Like Shauna's like the goddess of air, and she's choking right now. She's lit, and so that makes sense that it's full of gas.
Well, what's interesting too is if we consider the myth of Apollo, okay, so talking about the sun rising, the godhead and that Celtic symbology, which the god, the creator god or like the father god in Celtic mythology would be Bel and or Belenus, and he is like a sun god. And so that's parallel to Apollo. And then with Apollo, we have his creation myth or his birth with intertwined with the myth of Python, where so when Apollo is born, when his mother is pregnant, she is pursued by this python that Hera sends to hunt her down, and she says, "Do not allow Leto to give birth on solid ground." And so then her sister transforms into a floating island, and she gives birth there. And then so she gives birth to Artemis first. Artemis is a goddess of childbirth, and she also assists her mother in birthing Apollo. And so then when Apollo is born, he immediately is like, he goes to seek revenge upon the python who's been pursuing his mother. So then we have his sort of creation myth, which is him slaying a serpent, slaying the python, and then the python's body, where he kills it in the mountains, there's these like, basically it's like methane gases and that kind of thing that rise from these caves. But of course they say it is the rotting corpse of this python that Apollo slew, and that's actually where they built the temple at Delphi, and the Delphic oracle to Apollo is called the Delphic bee. But she breathes in those fumes, and then she gives her oracle, her prophecies, which are come to her from Apollo, right? We have a lot of this symbolism that is connected to Lottie in particular, that we've talked about so many times before. But it's all interwoven into this. And then we have with Aquila and with Van and Shauna going down into the cave. It's almost like they're just, descending, they're encountering the body of Python, and that's what's emitting these fumes in a sense. And so now they sort of have they transformed into priestesses of Apollo or prophets of Apollo. And Van has already had that symbolism really connected to her because there is a fire that constantly burns, a sacred fire that burns at the Delphic temple. And there's a priestess dedicated to keeping it there, and she's a priestess of Hestia. Hestia is a sibling of Zeus and Hades and all of them,
the
the
heart,
Olympians. And so
the
what
heart,
is
the
said,
heart. Yeah.
yeah, what is said is that the priestess of Apollo, she cannot function without her Hestia. And so there's something to that idea with Van and with Lottie and how connected they are, because Van is clearly that fire symbolism. She has so many of that. And then, of course, we saw this in this episode again, reminding us that she is that fire symbolism.
And then also with Shauna technically being a scribe, I would say. Like Shauna's
Totally.
could be the scribe, and then Aquila maybe the eyes. maybe the something that have to deal with like the land mother. I like this Aquila Earth Mother, perhaps.
Mhm.
Um, I like the llama was voiced by by a soprano.
Yeah, what was his name? Sorry to drop my husband was like,
Oh,
is that Joey Diaz?" He thought it was Joey Diaz, but no, he's like, "Oh, no, it's just that guy that looks just like Joey Diaz."
well, Aquila can
Was
be like, I
cute.
mean, Aquila the killer. Like, I mean, she's the key to the underworld, maybe, she's the key to the temple because there's the key holder, the watchman. So in prophetic saying, there's the scribes, there's the teacher, there's the
Mhm,
watchman who is like Aquila, or the people who hold the keys, or the ones that open the gates to the
yeah,
portal. And
mhm,
so very interesting to see where this will go.
yeah. So there's so much, and then so now we're scratching the methane rock now, okay? And again, sorry, we're not going into a lot of the details about the episode in particular, but we're talking about all this symbolism because there was just so much packed into this episode. So we just have so many thoughts. But so okay, now if we want to analyze kind of what I feel like it's relevant for us to kind of examine because this could be coming back to like, is it something real? Is it not just the, supernatural aspect of things? Obviously they're breathing in fumes. There's a scientific answer to that. When so and it might actually explain quite a lot about what's going on in the wilderness in general. So obviously they descend down, there's caves down there. What my guess is, my interpretation is that methane gas can come from mining operations. We've talked about that, chemical runoffs or mining or, gases and that kind of thing. They used to take like canaries down with them into the coal mines. And so coal mining releases methane gas because they're digging down into like the carbon down there, which is, like Mandy was saying, like there's rotting underground. Obviously that's, connected to underworld. So like it's like this balance of like the supernatural or like the spiritual aspect versus like there's this very possible scientific answer. So let me just read to you some of the notes I got. And I found an interesting website and just kind of things. And I am not a scientist. My husband is a plumber though. And so he was kind of helpful with this. And also there was the mention by Callie when she's with Lottie. She says something about her mom springing a pop quiz on thermodynamics on her. And again, this is all kind of like interwoven together. So, the most underground methane gas comes from coal mines, specifically from underground coal mining operations, as the process of coal formation naturally traps methane within coal seams, releasing it when the coal is extracted. This is often referred to as coal mine methane. Coal mining in Western Canada contributes to methane emissions, which can be harmful to the climate. However, there are technologies which can reduce methane emissions from coal mines. Um, Coal mining is a smaller contributor to methane emissions in Canada compared to oil and gas, agriculture, and waste. Methane emissions from coal mines have increased due to increasing mining productivity, deeper coal seams, and more pulverized coal. And methane concentrations can exceed safety levels if ventilation systems can't dilute or remove enough methane. My husband told me that there are actually, and I guess, so he said there are like clandestine like coal miners who will go out and search for like, these gold mines of coal. Like I was thinking to myself of um There Will Be Blood, the guy from There Will Be Blood, and he's out there and he's sort of a clandestine like oil man, self-made oil man. And so it made me wonder if perhaps that could be what's going on with the cabin, with Dead Cabin Guy, like why he was out there to begin with. Obviously, we've speculated a lot about underground tunnels and like what exactly he could be up to, but this might give us a little bit more concrete answers. And then with the thermodynamics aspect of it, thermodynamics is the study of the relationships between or the relations between heat, work, temperature, and energy. The laws of thermodynamics describe how the energy in a system changes and whether the system can perform useful work on its surroundings. So, like, if he's out there, he's mining for stuff, he taps into some crazy, like, you know, methane deposit or what have you, um, which maybe drove him kind of crazy, or he died from that, or his child died from that, or his wife, or what have you. It kind of explains a lot about what could potentially be going on out there, why the cabin was there to begin with.
I,
Mandy,
I
thoughts?
like
I've been
because
talking for a while.
and I've lost like 20 thoughts. But I do like this right here about methane occurs naturally from decomposition of organic matter. So it talks a lot
Mhm,
about that death and bringing it round circle to the point or the cave of death. This is where all of the death is. So then we're going to have that methane gas there. This is our deeper underworld symbolism. And then
mhm.
also the canary ends up dying in the process. Did we see a question, Chad? And you have to remind me because I didn't get to rewatch 5 times as usual. On the rewatch twice. So did we see if Aquila wakes up?
I think so. I think they
Okay.
all
Did they all
kind of
wake
were
up?
waking up at the end. Yeah.
Okay. Because like
Yeah.
yeah, this is gonna be interesting. Something died down there. We're not sure what it was. Jackie, she was the canary. I don't know. Look at
It's
this
the
cinnabar.
the python of Apollo.
Yeah, and I want to shout out really quick to several new people: Teresa, Berg, Luna Cascade, Taylor said, "Hey, what's up?" earlier. DZRM, I don't know how to pronounce that, but Natalie's my queen too, so we're gonna just put you up there. I'm gonna call you
And
D, my D. Uh,
Luna has a great comment here, and shout out to Luna. She's one of my patrons. So if you guys want to help support the channel, definitely check out my Patreon. Everything is linked in the description. But Luna says here, wonder if there may have been a methane leak near the cabin. That's a really interesting idea. Or like if there may be
why the fire started?
exactly. That's another point because okay, so all right, so let's get into
Underneath
this.
those stairs too, where all of the like, I feel like that would be the culprit because like you think about underneath, the outside stairs where they found all the liquor and the berries and the fermented berries and things like that.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah. I don't know. It's
Started outside,
definitely
right?
what's that?
The fire started outside.
That's what we presume. I mean, it's really questionable. There's so many kind of options. And actually, before we get into it, I did run a poll this past week. So let me pull it up because a lot of you guys were awesome and voted on it. And so my poll question was who started the fire? Like after this episode, I think we've got a better idea um of who the culprit might be or who it might not be. And I definitely think here, let me just pull up the results here. Can you
It's
guys
been
see that?
always burning since the world's been turning. Yeah, we didn't start the fire. Thaisa.
So yeah, strongly. So I got 769 nice votes. And let's be clear, like the entire time, Coach Ben has been the least likely culprit. Like
Yeah.
nobody thinks that Coach Ben lit the fire. Van is, obviously Thaisa is the front runner. Van is the second, and then the Wilderness being third, and then Coach being in dead last place. And that's how the entire poll has run. People just don't believe that Coach Ben was the one who did it. Maybe casual watchers, but not like obsessives like us, not those Yellowjackets obsessives. Um, now, there's the possibility that it was the Wilderness, that
I mean,
something happened, like kind of like how we saw with Jackie's body and how it roasted over the fire. So there's the potential that something else might have caused it, but
what about so was his dead body still up top or they removed it before because the ember hitting the things, but like this is a good kind of, you know, citizen detective work here is that can be made by almost or CH4 broken down and burned easily. That could have been like through all the girls in the cabin. Where's the next comment I'm going to? The fart comment. I don't know. I just thought about like, come on, y'all. They just ate. They're looking good. Nothing farts.
yeah.
I don't.
So there's,
First off,
I
I
mean,
don't fart. I fluff. Let's just make that clear to
but I
everyone.
feel like I guess if there was a methane leak into the cabin, then there probably would have been a more explosive, like
Yeah.
response, I guess you might say, like the way that we saw the flame sort of like pop up in, the little candle. So I don't know if the leak, but there could be like something nearby, which, obviously causes the delirium and everything that they're all experiencing. Um,
See, I personally on this poll, I feel like it it might have been Van. I don't know why I feel that way, but with all of like the thing, but just after this dream and seeing that and how she almost died by fire and it might have been an accident. I like this Van with a dark sided tie, maybe
yeah.
sleepwalking
So
while we
there's
were sleeping.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of like because so then we have
Who do
if
you
it's
think?
me
Yeah,
personally. Oh,
yeah.
I think it was Ty. Because I think in her alter state and she's just unconscious of it. I think she saw her coming back in and maybe didn't realize like what she was doing at the time or what have you. But Van and Ty were in the side bedroom that's in the cabin when this happened. So they're in the cabin layout, there's the main room, and then there's one side little bedroom, and then upstairs there is the loft area. Okay. So Van and Ty were sleeping in the bedroom downstairs, and there's a door to the outside from that bedroom. So Ty could have gone out, barricaded the door somehow, um, lit the fire, and then when they first come rushing into the room, Ty is standing there trying to open the door. But like, if she's lying about the situation, then like, maybe she's lying about the situation. Oh, I can't get the door open. I can't get the door. Maybe her foot's standing there or her foot stuck at the base of the door. I can't get the door open.
Van was
Van is kind of standing off to the side watching. So my presumption is Ty in her alter state did this out of revenge because this was the same night that Natalie was announced to be the queen, which Misty, Ty, and Shauna all kind of took issue with. They weren't exactly huge fans of that promotion, but hey, it is what it is.
hey
Now, Ty
jealousy.
in her alter state, which clearly Thaisa wants to be leader. She believes she should be leader. She's said that to Van outright in the first episode. And so I think that she does, she did it probably in her alter state. She's unaware of it in her conscious state. And Van knows and she's keeping the secret. And she maybe she hasn't even told Thaisa. Maybe Van is literally the only person that knows about it. Now, there was interesting in the scene where Van goes into, in her dream state, she goes into the cabin and then that ember flew out and that's what started the fire. So there's definitely the potential that it just started naturally. The only reason that I'm kind of like hesitant on it starting naturally is like why were the doors barricaded? Again, that could also happen. It's the middle of winter. They could have been frozen shut. We saw that happen in episode 7. They're struggling to get the doors open because they were all stuck in there like while Shauna was giving birth and all of that. So there's wiggle room, there's things, but
Maybe I think that maybe like Van was trying to cover for Ty.
yeah,
Yeah, and trying to
absolutely.
like she realized like she woke up and like fought like Ty must have done this, the tree tie, and trying to like, you know, just keep it going because at that point there's no like if she was the last one in the cabin and all the girls are running out and she's probably like covering evidence because and wants the whole
Absolutely.
thing to burn down.
Totally. And nobody else really knows about Ty's alter state. So, like, how are you supposed to explain that? Because Ty has not been willing to let anyone else know about that.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, and then it's interesting because Van's been going so hard on like blaming Coach Ben. Like when she had her little monologue in the first episode
Yeah.
and she's like this raging psychopath and all of this to the point where like Travis just walks away from it. Like he doesn't even want to partake cuz he doesn't
Maybe
believe
it's
that.
Travis. Oh.
But no, I don't think so. But
Well,
and then
they
well,
ate
and
they ate his brother. What the heck? What do you mean? Kill
true.
all of those.
Good point, but I don't think that he would like this is the thing. And this is exactly why I don't believe Coach Ben did it. No one would intentionally like ruin their shelter. Like they burned the cabin down. So if it was Coach Ben, I would think he like his goal, if he were to try and like, get rid of all the rest of the girls, it would be so that he could have the cabin. But like, if you burn the cabin down, then like what do you win in the end of the situation?
I don't
Now,
know.
what's
You're
really
crazy at that
interesting
point. They're
well, what's
crazy.
really interesting is that Thaisa, in the first episode, they're talking about who did it. Oh, Jen's been hunting. Thaisa is the one who facilitated the hut building, the building of their shelters. So I think that that's really interesting because, like, if alter state Thaisa is the one who burned down the cabin, and then her conscious state is the one who's like organizing the cabin building project, I was just like, oh my gosh, that is just so Thai.
Well, and it becomes her worth. It becomes what she establishes herself as an adult. Like
Yeah.
Misty with the doctor and the nurse, how she was like feeling the most needed in the wilderness. And
Hmm.
then Shauna as a mother. It's just,
Yeah.
it becomes their life forms. And it could be like that whole meshing into themselves, like a narcissistic mesh, the codependency dependent mesh, where you become this other thing. Interesting. I love it all.
Yeah. Well, yes, this would be like the logical reasoning. Like there could be a logical reasoning to why it happened. So, I mean, again, like the doors could have been frozen shut and maybe the wind blew an ember. Like, embers have been known to fly up through the chimney stack and that kind of thing and then like land on the roof and start a fire that way. The fire clearly started outside and then the doors were frozen shut. So like
It
or
could have been
stuck.
the wilderness saying, "Hey, how dare you think you know what I want? You pompous little people! Like
Yeah.
that's for you to think you know the will of God or the will of people or the will of the spirits.
Yep.
You're being persecuted. So
Well, and if you look at it like as I talked about in my recent Misty video, the cabin represents hope. It was a a home for hope. Um where like in Pandora, the myth of Pandora's box, all the evils had been spilled out into, afflict humankind, except for hope remained in the jar. So it served as a home for hope. And that's kind of like what the cabin represented for the girls.
and now all the evil's out. It might be
Well, now
masticated by
hope is
spring, but
well, what Hesiod says is that hope is a crutch for humans. So if you're dependent upon hope or you have expectation that somebody's going to come and rescue you from the wilderness, you have the expectation, well, at least I have shelter, so obviously some human is coming out here at some point. Like that makes humans weak. It ruins your industriousness. And so by destroying hope, by destroying the cabin, they were brought back to their survival, their actual survival levels, to where they had um, be industrious. They had to build their own shelter. They had to hunt again, going back to like a rawness, but they get sort of a reset of it. And now they're sort of on better footing, more solid footing for taking that on.
yeah. I think
Yeah.
I like this. Like, yeah, I think a punishment for letting Javi die because they could have saved him. They could have been Javi's crutch.
That's another idea.
Hopes is the most
Definitely.
evil, but it's also a rebellion is built on hope. So we'll see.
Well,
We'll see, y'all. I love these. These are great comments, and what a great conversation we're having about it. But I do think we need to move on to other scenes.
absolutely. So, okay, so let's see here. Let me just make sure we've got everything. Um, as far as the, kind of wrapping it up with the visions and all of that, obviously there was like the elemental presence, with Van's vision. Obviously, she had the fire symbolism, Akila had the earth symbolism, Shauna had the water symbolism. And the air I felt was affecting all of them. And when they had the air supply cut off, that's when these visions sort of occur and it sort of brings them close to death, like what we saw with Travis sort of touching the wilderness by coming close to death. Travis and Nat back in season 2 doing that. But then they get to the scene with Jackie, and the vision with Jackie I think is really relevant for obviously some various reasons. And I feel like it was kind of like the wilderness games. Like we see this sort of the wilderness games, and I feel
It
like
was
Coach
slapping you, literally slapping you in the face, slapping you on the
yeah,
hand,
yeah,
slap bracelets.
yep. And it was so interesting because Jackie was like completely ignoring Shauna throughout the whole scene. And you could see like that desperation coming from Shauna. And even I was kind of desperate. I was like, say something to Shauna. Like, why are you ignoring her? But yeah, it was really interesting. Here, let me pull up a photo from that scene. We got some Ella Purnell because we gotta.
And let's like shout out to her and Walter Goggins. By the way, my hair, I'm gonna be doing if y'all righteous gemstone followers, baby Billy, it's time for payday. I need glasses. There's gonna be a payday. Like, this is why part of the reason I'm doing my hair, because I'm trying to do the seashell baby Billy coming up soon. Oh,
Oh,
look at her.
Mandy.
Oh, she's so gorgeous. She looks great here.
She
And
does.
she's all like, what biatches? You know I'm the queen. You know that
Yep.
runs this. I was also looking at this thing about like what numbers are they representing, and like trying to think back about the tarot pulls and like the card numbers on the 52 deck. Like, what numbers are these? They're probably, we gotta look that up later, but they're probably something similar to like death and similar to, are they their original numbers or what? Who knows?
Are you talking about their jersey numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, they are the original.
Okay, but like, do we remember what those numbers mean? Because I think that is something in itself. Because like, which,
I don't know. I don't think we've ever spent much time, analyzing the numerology of it all.
well, not
Um,
numerology, but like where on the 52 card pickup deck where they'd use the 52 cards for the tarot, we definitely did that. So we have to go back and look
yeah.
at that. Yeah.
I don't know if we included the jersey numbers in that one, but that's I put that on the member exclusive videos. So all right. So let's see. So we had the wilderness game. So we have the slap bracelet game, and I felt like kind of like that was a testament, like again, going back to Aquila being sort of the pure, maybe the sacrificial lamb symbolism. Like she did the slap bracelet and she passed that perfectly fine. But then when Van did it, she got the cut on her arm. And Van is sort of that Jack character, that Jack figure, which we are also reminded of in the adult timeline, where she's not as straightforward. You don't always know what you're going to get from her, so she got the cut. And then with Shauna, I mean, I think we were all thinking the same thing. Like, was that punishment for the, Shauna Melissa kiss situation? The way Jackie just completely kind of ignored her throughout the whole scene. And then when she finally offers her the slap bracelet, she does it around her neck. And it was really interesting. The slap bracelet had sort of the rainbow coloring on it. So like symbolic of Shauna's sort of hidden sexuality. And then of course it had the wilderness symbols all over it. Slapped it across her throat, and then of course all this blood came gushing out. And
Wow. I
and
totally
Jackie
missed
just
that.
kind of stood by and watched. And Lottie's telling Aquila, get it off of her, she's gonna die, we'll all die if you don't save her, which is really interesting wording, and showing how important that Shauna actually is to the group, despite her not wanting anything to do with any of them. But yeah, it was a very interesting scene. There was a lot to analyze. I felt like it was just that those wilderness games, and then of course Jackie still has her confidence, the same confidence that she ever had. So it's not like she's changed at all in death. And so yeah, it's just very interesting. The whole thing was interesting. I really liked it a lot.
Well, wait, yeah, I mean, because Shauna is like rebirth Callie, Jackie is Callie, or, they all kind of come out, different parts of them come out in Callie, I think. But to me, I didn't even think of that at all. Like, what I saw was, like, again, who's supposed to be there, who's not, who's getting hurt. and who's like dead. So since Aquila didn't, like I'm saying, like she's the closest to death. Van very close, and then Shauna's like living dead in a sense, because she does, to me, Shauna represents like Hades a lot. She represents the underworld. Like she is just that. And a lot of people want to say that she's Earth, but like I don't. She's like the lowest of the, and the narcissistic level and all of the, chakra things we've talked about. She's the lowest level. So, and then with the hanger and all the symbolism with her, like
being
I
the
think,
butcher,
yeah,
the butcher symbolism.
Shauna is a representative of death. So I think that like that's why she died. She would have died in there. But if you kill death, then they're all, I don't know. It's like metaphorically speaking, when you conquer death, you live forever. When you become death, you look at face to face and you become death and you get it over it. But like, if you try to kill death, is it cheating death? Is it you dying? We're all gonna die. They're all, when they say die, is it like die metaphorically that they'll be stuck in death?
Yeah,
that's how I saw everything. It wasn't even about the lesbian stuff, but like I like that too, obviously.
Well, and as we like just read in the Celtic Tree oracle, like as you, when you die, you ascend to the next level in life. So like Shauna being that lower level, being the butcher, being, the sort of underworld symbolism, like and she's always fighting. Like we said, like she's always fighting. Like even when they're going through the tunnel, she's fighting and fighting against the wilderness and all of this. And so is that like a symbolic, like her struggle to stay alive or what have you? Like she's fighting against death to stay alive, not realizing that in her death, she ascends to a new level. She becomes a more enlightened version of herself in her next life.
Like Shauna is like the new Puss in Boots movie where
We're going so deep on the, esoteric like symbolism here right now, like in her next life.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen like the new Puss in Boots movie, but he's basically death is chasing him and he has to go to the underworld and he has to like fight death. That's Shauna.
I loved that movie. Actually, it was like so good. Puss in Boots, heck yeah, man. It was a really good movie.
No drama with death. I got my drama llama death, and I've got my like living side cups today because I couldn't decide which cup I wanted to be on.
I'm just constantly with my shroom brew.
Yeah, show it off because that's just a good moment of break from our stuff.
Take your opportunity to check out the Paramount merch shop where they have such lovely things that aren't dirty, coffee cups, Yellowjackets, and yeah.
That was my present for you, right? I don't remember.
It was, yes. Mandy sent me that. Thank you. I drink out of it every day. Oh my gosh, this is so funny. Dalai Lama. Yes, very good point. Maybe that's it, I mean, he was very like just blunt and dry with it and just like anything with teeth will bite. And that's Buddhism, it's not good or bad. It just is.
I just showed my 8-year-old kid World War Z,
really?
Where they all turn into zombies and they rip out the teeth. That's how like North Korea survives, because they rip out the teeth of the zombies. So let's see. We don't know. Next episode.
My husband's in the background saying that the llama means in Tibetan.
I think in India.
Oh, in Indian, that llama means ascended one or enlightened one.
Master.
An enlightened master. See, I told you. What are you times she's gonna come on here?
She's the key. She's the key. I want Aquila. Come on, everybody, root for Aquila.
Aquila. Yeah, that's interesting. I like that a lot. Okay, so all right, let's see.
Oh, look at this. Oh, I love this right here. Oh wait, okay.
Here we go. Carl Calabasas, descent into the underworld, followed by Anabasis, which is the ascent afterwards. Anabasis is also a very famous military account by Xenophon.
Also,
all right.
The
ninth tarot arcane is Hermit. Jackie isolated from the group. Perfect. I love it.
I vibe with that one. I'm very hermeticism.
Yeah, and that has to do with the cave also, like the isolation of the cave, with Coach Ben, descending into the cave, Mari descending into the cave, and then, re-emerging and finding her way out. That was her journey, her, mysteries, her, initiation, we might say.
We kind of skipped about Shauna and the whole her stuff, or that the R2, the whole dream with her just floating in the uh water, and very similar to House of Dragon and the whole concepts we talked about there.
Oh, yeah, oh, well, the Shauna Allison symbolism was very thick this episode, and, we're here for that on this channel. Uh,
Oh, heir is Jackie. Look at this. That was just nice. Who's the heir? Like, I mean, I guess there's an argument right now, or not
Yeah.
argument, but like debate in the
Hold
chat.
on, we got one more thing about the llama. Hold on.
If you want to protect your sheep and your goats and all your animals and livestock, you get a llama. They're tough and they put up a fight.
Oh, so that's like what Aquila is.
Aquila is the llama.
Anything with teeth bites,
Uh-huh.
they're the perfect example of that. A llama will kick ass.
Yeah, llamas are nasty little spitters.
Yeah, spit, bite, kick. Afraid of shit.
Interesting. I don't know if you guys heard that. So he said that that llamas are the perfect guardian for, your goats and your sheep and your little ducklings and whatnot.
No drama with the
'cause they're
llama. And the
mean.
flower. Oh, and the flower crown. I'm pushing it. I'm pushing it. But
We're trying. He's very stubborn. He doesn't want to. He's shy.
he's
You
good.
know, I don't think he
Yeah.
wants his claim to fame to be being on a Yellowjackets podcast.
We gotta get like Aquila, like a like with us with some stuff riding a llama into battle. you know, with their soprano guns or something.
That's her spirit animal, like Shauna or well, Jackie and the bunnies, and like, with Nat and the owl, and Misty and the birds, and then now Aquila is the llama queen.
The llama dama.
Yeah, everyone who wants R2 to come on screen, do a thumbs up. He actually just left, but still do the thumbs up because we want him on.
We need R2's survival skills. Like that's what I think we need a whole thing.
I told him, I was like, we should just do like a conversation about Coach Ben or something like that. He loves Coach Ben. Like he is just like, and what was so funny is like, so he loves Coach Ben because like my husband's a total like outdoorsman, a hunter, and all of this kind of stuff. And then we're watching the episode and we're just laughing the whole scene with like Mari and Coach and the pepper spray and all this kind of stuff, the bear spray. And we're just watching it and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's so you. And then the coach goes and he says, I'm just a normal guy. I like frozen burritos. I've seen Dave Matthews Band 3 times. I didn't even like Dave Matthews Band. And I'm laughing because that's exactly R2.
I actually did think of him when he mentioned the Dave Matthews Band. I was like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, R2, he loves, like, he's like, well, I don't love Dave Matthews Band. I only love when he performs with Tim Reynolds, but I have seen him like 4 times. I was like, oh my gosh, you've told me the story 100 times. We've been together forever, but.
Well, I mean, one of the Watchtower, when they do all on the Watchtower, that kind of is what we're talking about too, like the Watchmen prophetically. Yeah. So there, and Coach Ben is a watchman. Like he literally saved them. He's the one that kept them from going into the door and things like that. So there might be something more to that. And and he said 3 times. 3 girls.
Oh, interesting. He's been initiated. Dave Matthews is a fellow jacket.
No, I'm Coach Ben. Yeah, I've seen him a few times. Maybe probably Dave Matthews is everything, right?
He's probably like a symbol of the wilderness. This is just, opinion speaking, but yeah. So anyhow, okay. So and then so to finish up analyzing the dream sequences, obviously we also had Shauna with her son and her kind of floating in the water, and then she was trying to get to him. She's unable to swim to him. Totally heartbreaking scene. Oh my gosh, I was so heartbroken. I was crying. I was like,
I cried.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like
Intense.
as if last episode her reburying him and all that wasn't enough. And then it's just
Yeah.
like her swimming till the air runs out and she's drowning in the lake. And then that's not, to me, that was another symbolism of like, I don't know if any of you fans here, but Gyra, like you would cross an ocean so I wouldn't drown. Like, you know, Jesus crosses the ocean to save Peter from drowning, or Paul, or anyway, but he saves them from drowning in the wildness of the sea. And she's here drowning and going as fast as she can, and there's nothing that the waves will do. And so it kind of reminds me of like, even though she's not in a storm, she's still in clear water, but she's still struggling instead of keeping herself afloat. So another really great metaphor for Shauna, just
Her
choking,
fighting against the
her
wilderness.
choking and not
Yeah.
breathing.
And fighting against the wilderness. And then of course this idea that she only ever sees her baby like in those, or her son in those those close to death moments. So it's like, you know, it's probably the same with Travis, and like when he's having those, you know, those near death experiences where he's tapping into the wilderness. You know, I've always speculated, and we've talked about this, that he's probably connecting with Javi in those moments. That he might be able to see Javi or speak the way that, like, at the moment of Travis's death, Lottie saw Laura Lee. So that's this way that they kind of connect with the wilderness in these near-death experiences. And we saw this, you know, I think the 3 dream sequences were completely like a nod to that idea. And then with Shauna and her baby, like she only ever sees him in those moments. So like when she gave birth and she had the whole like dream sequence that she was with the baby, she held him, she got him to nurse and all this kind of stuff. Um, that was her in a near death experience. And, you know, those were just, you know, imagination. Like that's just her imagination, unfortunately, or, you know, her connection with the wilderness. And so it's like, I don't know. It's just such an interesting dynamic that she's constantly fighting against the wilderness. And I'm not saying like given to death, like blah, 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 you know, it's giving it, it's offering you like what you want and this kind of thing. But we can see like that, you know, Shauna's heart's desire is her son, having her son close to her. And the only way she can do that is when she's close to death. So it's interesting that she fights death or fights the wilderness so hard.
To hear his call, do you hear my baby crying? The call, and then
Yeah.
Callie. And I like this, you know, do you think like maybe she kind of treats Callie like a son, not a daughter? And then this one is cool. The wilderness child being blind is interesting.
I think on that note, it's so much, it's, I
I
don't
like
know
it.
about that because you know what?
I like
Sons
it.
are, your relationship with your son and your relationship with your daughter is just so different. They're just so completely different. So I don't know. I don't see that from those two.
I definitely wanted to have a daughter, but then I ended up with a son. But like he is like, honestly, he's very like like in between. Like he's in dance squad. You know, he loves that he's a boy, but he's very feminine and he does a lot of girl stuff. Like his favorite color is rainbow. Like, but he's very strong in being gender, like having no boundaries when it comes to genders. But I actually, you know, I'm also that way. So probably that's where it comes from. But it definitely is like, it's different. And now that he's a little older and starting to hang out with the boys more, you know, it's, you can see the different sides of him in the juxtaposition. Cause like him in dance class with all the ladies, like, you know, it's a lot different than him hanging out with his friends in Boy Scouts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that like, you know, daughters are so much different than sons. I feel like sons want to please, I feel like they love their mamas and they want to please their mom so much. And then daughters, they just don't care. They're like, and they want to please their dad. Like they want to be daddy's girl. And it's just a natural dynamic or whatever. It just happens. So like, I don't feel like daughters care so much like what their moms think of them. And so it's,
I mean,
I have such a more like tender relationship with my sons than I do with my daughter because she's just so like doing what she wants to do. She doesn't care. Like she's not as like affectionate towards me. as she is like towards her dad. It's interesting.
Yeah, my son does what he wants, and he kind of does that. But I think he's more affectionate to both of us. But like, I teach him to show affection to daddy, and I think that like he will justify, his dad's, and like kind of have more sensitive heart than I do when it comes to certain things. Or he will be like, "Mom, it's just hair. It's okay. Just like let's calm down." Like, because there was a day we sent him to school and it was picture day, and then his hair is all crazy, and I'm like, "Come on, it was picture day. What are you thinking?" Like freaking out. And he's like, "Mom, it's just hair. Okay, let it go." Like, and I'm like, "Okay, all right. I'll forgive you, and I'll forgive your dad for that. Yes, okay, you're right." But he does have that like tender-hearted nature. But I actually also, I have a lot of male energy, I think. So it just all depends, I guess. I just let him be what he wants, and it's nice to see the difference. Anyway, girls are more independent. I don't know about that. I'm trying to teach my son Fee. Like, I teach him, I said, "Listen, you're going to grow up and you are going to be the leader of a household. You're probably going to have a wife, and you're going to need to have to provide for your family. It was just how daddy provides for us. And this is important, that you need to be independent." And I think that's also what like these girls are learning, but they're not learning it from an adult perspective. They're learning it from a dire straits, live or death, mind boggling perspective, where they're living from their cortex, their frontal cortex, which causes like psychopathy and causes different things. And because they're living in fight or fear mode, and the Madame Aguma? I can't think of the word right now. Somebody help me with the chat. But when you're living in fight or fear mode, whereas if you're living in a comfort mode where you're like, okay, that's
Yeah.
all right, it's a lot different. And I think, though, Callie was grown in that comfort mode, and that's also why she's yes, amygdala. But Callie was grown in that comfort mode where she's like, she feels too safe. Like, she's just like, "I'll do whatever I want because I'm not going to get in trouble." Or, "I'm going to do this because my mom's there to protect me." Or, "Let me be just like mom and lie to the police and do all these things that, we saw her out behaving and misbehaving. So,
Yeah. Yep. It's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I agree with what you say. Like, when they're, like looking at like Callie versus, the girls surviving in the wilderness at, at the same age. It's just such a completely different um brain chemistry going on, you know?
look at this. As the baby boy, you literally can do no wrong. I don't know about that. Like, I'm tough. Like, you can do wrong, but like, I expect more. And then, yeah, you're not. I don't hold big punishments as long as I like. You can't have your iPad for the week, and then he has his iPad like the next day.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I shared this song in the chat
Excuse me.
because, okay, first of all, one of my very favorite bands, if probably my very favorite band, is Lord Huron. And they like play this song, Ghost on the Shore. And I swear, I was like, this is Shauna's baby's song. Like, this is her son's song. So I don't know. I was just obsessed with it, and I wanted to share it with you guys. They have a couple songs. I'm not good at doing those kind of, I know some people can make those like music videos with, the show clips and stuff. I am not that person. I can do my own like silly essay videos, but I can't do those. So if somebody wants to make one of those for me, use that song, use some Lord Huron. And I also like loved the whole the van scene in the cabin, because I really felt like that had such the music that they start playing, like when she goes into the cabin. And we should mention, like, the cabin, I think that's like the cabin in its heyday is the room that she entered, when it, maybe when Cabin Daddy was there with his wife, she had some nice feminine touches in the room, some nice curtains and that kind of thing. But I loved the music that was playing when she goes in there, and it's sort of this sort of, I don't even know. It reminded me of Lord Huron, is what I said. I'm like, oh, Van's being Lord Huron right now. So if anyone else listens to that band, then you'll get it. You'll get the vibe. Tell me if you guys do. Anyways, whatever. So, okay, so let's see. Now we have, so I think that kind of encompasses the teen timeline. You know, they get Coach Ben, and next episode is going to be kind of the trial of him. Now, as far as the adult timeline goes, we had equally like some spooky kind of things going on. So let's try and get through it. One of the things that I noticed, of course, was when we have the whole van scene, not Vanessa Palmer, but I'm talking about Shauna's van, driving her van. Let me see if I have a photo. Why don't I have a photo? But anyways, doesn't matter. We'll pull up this photo of Shauna because why not? So Shauna has, of course, Lottie staying at the house, and that's, you know, a little bit of pressure going on. We had so many very distinctive, like Shauna as Demeter scenes going on, the goddess Demeter. So as we've talked about with Demeter and Persephone and Hades and sort of that myth, we've talked so much about Shauna being connected to Demeter and her earth mother symbolism. You know, she is the grain goddess and all of that. So we saw tons of this going on in this episode, and I loved it. And I just wanted to point out a couple of moments in particular that stood out. So in the very beginning of the episode, when she's making the pancakes, obviously grain acknowledgement, grain symbolism going on. She burns the pancakes. Now we know that Demeter also has a furious aspect to her. So basically, after her daughter disappears and she's on the search trying to find where Persephone had gone, she's in the underworld. So Demeter's she sort of neglects her duties as a grain goddess, as like the goddess of agriculture and all of this, and she becomes this furious aspect of herself, which is called Demeter Erinyes. And that's, of course, a nod to the Eumenides, because the Eumenides are called the Erinyes also. And so this is her like furious, vengeful aspect to herself, where she's seeking justice. Where is my daughter? I need to know where she is. And we saw so much of that with Shauna in this episode. So she burns the pancakes. We have the burnt grain symbolism going on. We also have when she's in her van. Now we know that Demeter, she has actually a chariot that is it, you know, a flying chariot that is that she flies through the sky on. So we saw that her van is obviously very connected to that symbolism. There was even this brief scene where we see her driving past when she's with Misty. She's driving in the van, and they go past and they show a little what do you call them? A little like dandelion floofy, you know, the seedling bits or whatever. So she drives past it and the seeds start to spread. They all fly off in the air. Such Demeter symbolism. And like, I don't know if anybody else appreciates these things, but I freaking do. So we're going to take the moment to point them out. Not only that, Shauna, she is wearing green shoes, which I just thought was like a perfect little nod. You know, we have so many of these little nods with their shoes. Obviously, the pink Converse. Obviously, I always loved Walter's shoes, where he's got the Hermes symbolism and he wears the camouflaged tennis shoes. So I just think that's perfect because Hermes has flying tennis shoes. So I just think it's really a great nod. So Shauna wearing the green Adidas, which, by the way, I totally have to get some. Secondly, you guys know that Shauna and I are like fully like, that's my girl. And I swear to God, I only own one pair of tennis shoes. And what color are they? They're green. Okay. I'm a freak. They could have just hired me to play Shauna Sharon, and I would have shown up with my own wardrobe and been good to go. Anyway,
most of you is green and teal and black. And white. Most of you is green, teal, black, or white. Like, I think I've only seen you in those.
Yeah, that's kind of my color scheme. I'm a very
like her.
And some orange. I like a lot of orange. But anyways, so yeah, so then like her van flying out of control, obviously, again, kind of a nod to that, like she's got road rage in her chariot. But I just like noticed so much also, like Shauna's really stepping into this authoritarian sort of like position, like the way that she speaks to everyone around her. And it's such an interesting contrast to how she was in previous seasons, because even remember in season 2 when they go to Lottie's compound, and even there Ty is like talking crap to Shauna and saying like, well, your family's poor, basically. Kenny, your family's poor. And like now we see this situation where like they're doing very well. When Lottie shows up at their house, she's like, oh, okay, this is nice, and Jeff's like, oh, she loves her linens, like we've got all these linens, we've got nice stuff, our house is nice and everything. So it's just like kind of a very different energy than the first 2 seasons. And I think that has to do with the fact that Shauna is sort of, despite the fact that they're not openly acknowledging it per se, she was the one who drew the queen card at the end of season 2. And then Natalie died. And so Shauna has sort of stepped into the actual Queen of Hearts position in effect. But then Lottie, has this weird like thing going on with Callie, where she obviously recognizes a lot of power in Callie, and she's sort of pushing that. And so she's pushing for this sort of, you know, whatever between Shauna and Callie, like this discord between them,
think there's
because,
a triangulation, and like this
yeah,
is Hecate, the mother, the 3 of them together.
exactly. And, and so then we have this kind of interesting idea because, okay, so then Lottie gives her Jackie's necklace, the heart necklace, which it's so symbolic to the girls out in their time in the wilderness. We see that, like when Natalie drew the queen card, they put the necklace on her. When Jackie died, she's wearing her necklace. And then, Shauna eventually takes it from her when they're going to go cremate her body. And Pit Girl is also wearing the necklace in the opening scene when she falls into the pit. So the necklace itself has like some sacrificial symbolism connected to it, some deathly sort of symbolism. But then Lottie says it never meant what you thought it meant. So it kind of makes me wonder if it's more connected to a queen, like the queen, whoever's the queen or whoever's their leader at that moment in time. And so we saw this moment. So like, regardless of the situation, regardless of what the necklace actually means, it was very interesting after Shauna kind of blew up in that scene and kicks Lottie out of the house, the way she looks at Callie. Like she literally looked at her like she was going to kill her. And that's her own child. And there just was just this anger just emanating from her. It was terrifying. And so you have to wonder, like, okay, if the necklace is, pushing Shauna's buttons in some kind of way, how is she looking at Callie? Like, what does that look mean? Does she look at her as more of a sacrificial victim and like her butcher aspect is coming out? Or does she look at her as like a challenge to her queenship, which Shauna has felt so like entitled to the entire series, since she was younger. Very clearly she feels like she should be the queen. She feels like she's earned it, whether by the sacrifices that have happened or just like the things that have happened to her, or just the fact that she like, sort of as the mother figure feels like she should be the leader in a sense. So how was it that she was looking at Callie? Like, what did that look mean? Was it like, I'm going to kill you, or you're a challenge to me, or was it simply like what she said, you don't know what you're talking about kind of thing, which, yeah, I don't think it was that. I think it was one of the first 2. Anyways, what were you going to say?
2 things. One about Shauna's behavior is, when we talk a lot about the narcissism, and again, we are just fans and people who, I'm somebody that's been through a lot of abuse. And so I know it, and I'm used to it. And I've also been the abuser. I'll be first one to admit it. Like, I'm not perfect. No one is perfect. So I really identify with these characters. But like, Shauna is masking at this point, and she, like how she said to Jeff before, like, I just want things to go back to normal. Like, she's trying to put on this image that isn't her. And how she reacted to Callie is she was hit by her narcissistic wound that hit her in a deep spot, and how she freaked out like that is, you know, kind of what happens is like in the cycle of abuse and trauma, you will go through these things and then you'll get back to normal and everything will seem like it's okay and you'll make promises to each other. But then as soon as something hits that narcissistic wound, then it goes overboard. That's when the breaks start to come. And like, you know, that's when all these things are starting to happen. And Shauna tried to like take a break, but really what happened is like she needs to take, you know, fix her breaks because she's been ignoring the things that her breaks have had problems from the beginning, from the absolute beginning. We have known Shauna needs to get a new break system. Have we not? But she's been ignoring the whole fact since then. And now here it is. It's all going out of control because she thought that she had things in control. She's putting up new blinds. She's getting in the house together. But it's really like her wilderness friends, they're helping her get the house together. And instead of her being a team cooperation, you know, she's using Misty, then blame shifting and projecting on Misty. You know, she's going there and like even Lottie kind of like an evil fairy, but I don't think she's stealing people's children. She just sees that as she's like the combination of the team. Like Callie has the spirit of Jackie, has the spirits of all of them together, and Shauna was the mother. And so them coming back together is for a purpose. And Lottie sees that. She sees the joy and she sees the opportunity in all of it. And the heart necklace to me reminds me of the heart of King David, who was like God's favorite king because of the heart of love that he had for him. He didn't want to be. He was the least of the brothers and sisters. He was last choice, right? No one would ever think Callie would be the choice for the queen until this happened. And it was due to her protecting her people, protecting, you know, other people and protecting her mom. And the heart of David is a huge thing with dancing. And Callie went dancing that night where they reconnect with Jackie, do the David dance. It's about what you're wearing. It doesn't matter. A lot of these things kind of resemble, and with Jackie too, it's a heart of gold, a pure heart, you know, a heart. Mom, you should tell, when she found out about Adam, you should tell the truth. But you know, she's being manipulated by Shauna in a lot of good ways, but now that she's able to be manipulated, because in the beginning she wasn't so much, but now that she is, Shauna has opened up her own daughter to Misty and Lottie and putting her in these situations. Meanwhile, projecting onto Misty and Lottie how they're the blame because Shauna's looking for anyone to blame but herself. Shauna, you're the one that didn't get the brakes fixed. And why didn't they get fixed? Because you were too busy cheating on your husband. Like, let's go back to those factors. You know what I mean? You're too busy thinking about these things instead of, hey, this is what we got to do.
That's a good point. I hadn't even considered that, going back to the Adam situation. You didn't get your brakes fixed.
She is recreating the cycle of trauma of abuse and recreating, like, this is exactly what, like, Machiavelli, dark triad, narcissistic Machiavelli types, psychopathic types do. You know, she can be a sociopath clearly, and it's where she will definitely like never take responsibility on anything, even pushing them into the cave. And we see that, and we see how far she's willing to push to the point of death. But yet she opens the door for whoever wants to, for whoever. Jeff is literally warning her. Callie is even like, Mom, I'm not sure. But she's like, oh, you know, well, I guess, because I think in my mind, Shauna was like, she's going to see why I'm right, trying to prove a point of why Shauna is better. But it happened to just go the opposite way of what she wanted, because she didn't think, because in her mind, like, Lottie is a terrible person, crazy cult runner, all this stuff. But instead, she thought that her daughter would take her side like she did originally, instead of her daughter being interested. And once she finds that her daughter is more interested in Lottie, because remember last episode, they had a common sharing, and their sharing was about her daughter abusing people. That's how they bonded. So let's, really check the brakes on her intention. I don't even think she has intention. I think right now she's just trying to avoid the reality and not even talk about it, not talk about who's leaving her, Melissa, which we believe is leaving all these things, but, not talk about the truth about where that she found the phone, what's going on. But yet, as soon as she gets pushed to that narcissistic thing, she completely sabotages Jeff's meeting and attacks a person that she feels less than because she's an entitled, raging Bia in my mind. Like there's no, you can't, you cannot convince me otherwise that Crystal doesn't exist and that Shauna is a dark triad, Machiavelli, evil representation of the devil. So I don't know.
Yeah, and let's go back to the very first scene with adult Shauna, the very, very first one where she's ironing the clothes and she's watching Jeopardy. And what's the answer? It's what's the show they're speaking of? Why can't I think of it?
Jeopardy. She's like
Paradise Lost. Paradise Lost. And Paradise Lost is all about, a descent to hell. Or well, it's about Satan. It's about Satan being cast into hell, and then his ascent out of hell to try and corrupt humanity, and then God's punishment upon him again. And then, of course, it's interwoven with like the story of marriage and life and all of this. And so it's very like indicative of Shauna and who she is and like her whole character arc. She's got some satanic darkness, connected to her that's ascended from this very dark place onto humanity.
If you make your bed in Sheol, make it gladly. And she's
Yeah.
like living in her own cage, in her own hell that she's created. And, this is a common thread for a lot of stay at home moms and mental health wise. And, they didn't address when they came home, they kept the wilderness secret. They didn't address and heal their trauma as children. And that's why she's so protective of her daughter and letting her daughter go out and letting her daughter experience this trauma. That's why she stays in a relationship, but it ends up working out. But at the same time, you need to address these traumas and heal from them. And that's why I like season 2 so much, because they started to do it. So this Shauna, she did get called out by like Thaisa, and she did get called out by these other people and recognized and finally come clean. Like she let out the truth. She's like, I don't know, but like that's not enough for you to tell the truth. You have to start making a change, not pretending like nothing, like get back to the old and new, get back to the old ways. I'm just happy to do this again with my son, with you, and get back to normal. Well, that's not healing. It's just not. You have to go through it. And instead of, she's building her house in a sense, which is good, but at the same time, she's trying to cover it versus realizing that the foundation was broken from the whole get-go.
Yeah.
And the motivation, I mean, we talked about it. After losing the baby with Jeff and after blaming Jeff and doing all that stuff and her threatening Jeff that, about death, if you try to do something with Callie or, all those threats to Jeff about the baby, or if you get me pregnant, I'm going to do this and that. Like, I mean, why would she go back to Jeff? This whole thing, why? Like, why are you making the same mistakes over and over and over? It's because that's literally the definition of insane, is that you keep doing the same thing expecting it to be different. And it's not that she believes in Jeff or believes in herself or she's trying to like forgiveness. She's not about forgiveness. She's about blaming. She's trying, I think, I know she needs to forgive herself.
Yeah.
And then she can go outwards.
Well, she's bearing a lot of guilt. I think a lot of it too, as we see in the teen timeline, obviously she is bisexual, if not just fully gay. And so part of going back to her life and then getting back together with Jeff was like very similarly to the way that Thaisa rejected Van, and the reason that they broke up, which we learned, was because, Ty wanted the veneer of respectability and, she was going to law school and becoming this high-powered lawyer and all this kind of stuff. But in the end, she was gay anyways and married to a woman, which was like the ultimate betrayal to Van, because that's all Van ever wanted from her. She never wanted anything else from Thaisa except for herself. And so the same way that Shauna, went home and completely denied her own sexuality, because obviously if, she she has this relationship going on with Melissa. She had these deep-seated feelings for Jackie, which all kind of compound into that guilt that she's carrying, which probably was part of the reason that she just went back and got back together with Jeff. Because, like, how do you explain that to Jeff? Like, yeah, I went to the wilderness. Your girlfriend died. I was actually in love with her, but then she died because we got into a fight. And then I got together with another woman and had a, gay relationship while I was out there. Like, how do you explain that to Jeff? Oh, also, I was pregnant with your baby when I got there, and then the baby died. That's a lot. That's a lot of things. And and compounded with everything else, the stress of, I mean, it just had to be an utter shock to be rescued anyways. And that's something that we really talk about, like, as far as like my pit girl theory goes, which is that the pit girl event takes place like just prior to them being rescued, like maybe a day or 2 days before them being rescued. And so the utter shock of going from that extremely dark place, being thrust back into society and having to sort of normalize yourself, like that's probably part of Shauna hiding that about herself, the gayness or at least the bisexuality of herself. It was part of the whole package. We're leaving all of that there. We're leaving all of it in the wilderness, and we're not talking about it ever again. We're not facing that stuff. We're not talking about the baby. We're not talking about Melissa. We're not talking about Jackie. None of those things. We don't speak of it, My grandpa actually, after he went to World War II, he had a really traumatizing experience in World War II. He would not speak about it at all.
Well,
He wouldn't.
PTSD triggering. And
Yeah.
like obviously the necklace was extremely triggering. And and she's thinking about Melissa, which I'm wondering if they've even kept in contact together. Probably, in my mind, with the way Shauna hides secrets, her and Melissa probably have been talking a lot, or she dumped Melissa a long time ago when she had to get back with Jeff, because she had to filter or put on this persona, like, because, well, one, it's the 90s still, like you couldn't come out, things were not acceptable, especially for her in this situation. And like she's trying to deny whatever anyone was saying out in the wilderness. And I mean, come on, like the Catholic girls' school theories, girls, people talk like that all the time. And Shauna's main instinct is to deny everything. And she's denying what's happening in her life. She's denying her PTSD. She's denying her daughter. She's denying which is why her daughter is just, even though she's trying to like keep her safe, I think that she denies herself from her daughter, and which creates that disconnect. And Lottie is sitting there like going deep. Who is it that you are? Tell me who you are. Let me know about you. Like giving Callie something that her mom never let her be. So it's very complex and very trauma. Shauna's it's not even Shauna's fault. Like it really isn't. Like it's just like the conditioning and that PTSD, I guess, that triggers. You're right.
And it's how she handles it, is just like, we're not talking about it kind of thing.
Yeah, Shauna's the worst, but I have to forgive her for if she knows not what she does.
Yeah.
Truly.
Now so we also had the scene like when the confrontation happens with the necklace and all of that kind of thing. I just wanted to briefly point out Lottie had mentioned the 13th floor food being all full of lard and it keeps you sedated, though they would never tell you that. So shout out to Lottie for being Maha.
Yes, break the stigma. Break the stigma.
She's Make America Healthy Again. Lottie is all about it. But it was also really interesting. We've talked about how Ty and Lottie, they resist eating meat. Like they're both like vegetarians or vegan. They avoid eating meat. But then we had the scene with Ty when they're in the restaurant right before the reverse hunt, as I call it. The restaurant scene is a reverse hunt. Lottie is also doing something similar. So she mentions at the beginning of the episode, she's, oh, gotta watch what we're eating. And then, but the end of the episode, she's making food, she's making dinner, and she's making a meat dish. like a chicken dish. So obviously she's planning to eat meat. What was also interesting, she's pouring the wine, she's pouring the spirits. They're dancing and they're singing. She's got Callie involved. She bought her the fancy dress. What I really noticed about the dress too is that it had that metal like sort of embellishment, which is
The
in
choker.
the shape of like horns. It's like a horned goddess, and that's very symbolic of like the Queen of Heaven. That's like some Isis symbolism. So I just thought that
But the
was really
choker
interesting.
though, because it's a choker bar.
Yeah,
Like
totally.
she's dying in the dream.
Yeah, good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
There's
there's a
also
lot to
crown.
it. And then of course that being that sort of like it's all red. So what does the red indicate? Is that Queen of Heaven or is that sacrificial? There's a lot kind of to that. It's
And then
kind of
the
a double-edged
Jackie,
sword, and we don't know exactly what Lottie had in mind for that situation.
but Jackie in the red dress. Remember how Jackie tries to get Sean to wear the red dress
Very true.
as well?
Yep. Yep.
Just a lot of it out
And
there.
I think we should point out too, Lottie saying 13th floor. There was a movie back in 1999 called The 13th Floor. I don't know if you remember this, Mandy, but I didn't watch it like, back in the day, but I was reading about it, and without going into too much detail, just because we want to get through this in the next few minutes, but it's all about basically a simulation, like a simulation. There's a guy working on a simulation, simulated like worlds and that kind of thing. And then the creator, he's like murdered, and then this other guy gets his like associate gets thrust into it, and he's figures out that everyone's living in a simulation and all this kind of stuff. And so what's really interesting about that is also the fact that we have with Mari talking about, I think there's two realities, and that's like a major theme. Sorry, we didn't really get into that with the teen timeline, but we're going to kind of discuss it now. So yeah, there's this idea that we're dealing with two realities, and maybe that's where the screaming is coming from. Even the llama says to Aquila, they're calling for you. And so this movie, The 13th Floor, is about a simulation, and then the guy finds out that they're all living in a simulation. They're like kind of slaves to the simulation. But not only that, then we get into the Ty and Van stuff, and the man with no eyes, and the ice cream shop. Okay. And so hold on just one second. Let me pull this up.
All I
So
could
we
think
have
is like flavor of the week, like that song. You're just the flavor of the week, and like doesn't matter what Wilderness wants, they're all ice cream to it.
So I noticed that there were a lot of Ozzy Osbourne references. Did anyone else pick up on that, or was it just me? Because
Yeah, but also
okay.
that diner off of Route 9. Oh,
So we have like Ozzy's ice cream parlor. This is the man with no eyes. It's freaking Ty out. We have Coach Ben and Mari. They're eating bats. Okay, they're eating bats in the cave. That's the Ozzy Osbourne thing. Then we have the man with no eyes, who's totally like a goth, kind of goth guy looking, whatever. And so I was doing a little bit of research. I was like, okay, let's look up Ozzy Osbourne and ice cream. I was just like, maybe we'll find some connections here. And I found there was this music video from a band called Coal Chamber. Okay, we're going super 90s here. Coal Chamber. Now, there's a guy, they cast a guy who basically, I don't know if he dressed up like Ozzy Osbourne or he just very much looks like Ozzy Osbourne, and confused a lot of people to believe that it was Ozzy Osbourne in this video. It wasn't actually, but it's a guy that looks just like him. Now, the whole premise of the video is the Ozzy Osbourne guy is playing an ice cream man. He's driving his ice cream truck. He goes to this house, and he's like kind of a creepy, like, kind of crazy guy. He goes in, and it's the members of the band who live in the house, but they're like normal in the house. They're just normal people, like watching TV or just like hanging out or whatever. They're not doing anything. They're dressed normally, not all like crazy, like 90s butt rockers and stuff. And so the Ozzy Osbourne character is going up, and he's taking one of those Viewmasters. You remember the Viewmaster? You hold up to your eye, you click the thing, and the pictures kind of rotate. So he's taking a Viewmaster and he's holding it up to the people's eyes. And when they look inside, what they see is them in the band. They're playing the music, they're rocking out. It's like a whole different world. Two realities, okay? Two realities. And so then by the end of the episode, he has all the band members and he has them taken prisoner. They're like trapped. They have the Viewmaster strapped to their face and they're like forced to like watch the video. So it was very kind of like going into that idea, the two realities, which I think is something that is going to be really important going forward in the series. It seems like that's a theme. And then also it's kind of like, is that the other world? Like we're talking about all these Celtic tree things, and the other world is also what they call a noon, which is the place which the that's one of the circles, right? The circles. So it's a
It's
lot.
also it's also like
It's
what
a lot.
hand is the glass is a full is it half empty, half full? Or what wolf survives? The one you feed the most. So
Mhm.
wait, I want to call. So did you call the number of the ice cream place?
I didn't, but I mean, I
Call
listened
it.
to a recording of what it is, and it's terrifying. It's totally terrifying. Not only that,
I'm
that
calling it.
in the audio, okay, and I'm not a smart person about this stuff. In the audio, there are literally messages embedded into it. So like, people who are good at like reading this, I don't even know, but they were able to like decipher like hidden messages,
Ugh.
including the fact that if you like look at the frequencies or whatever you call it, there's messages hidden in it. It says, "I'm hungry."
Okay, let's
I'm
call it.
not kidding. And then there's all these like creepy little like frequencies like interwoven into it. I'm not a smart person about that kind of stuff, but there are definitely people. I'll try and like accumulate some stuff from it. You can call this number and listen to the absolutely are you going to call
Let's
it?
do it. Yeah.
Okay, call it, Mandy, and put it up to the
Wait, sorry, wrong number. I'm gonna check it one more time. Okay, 858. Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're doing
really
this.
unnerving.
I feel like we're
guys.
like it's like Bloody Mary, Bloody Mary.
Thank you for calling homemade ice cream. Purveyors of fine sweets and treats to the greater Piscataway community. Hello? Yeah, this is Ozzy's. It's a homemade ice cream place out in Route 9. As of now, our scoops are broken, our pie plate's cracked, and our doors have closed for the last time. 34 years. If you reach us during our regular business hours, we're sorry we weren't able to chat. We're likely scooping out eye-popping delights for our customers. Come on down for a sample of this week's dizzying array of delectable amusements, including honey, smashed pumpkin, cranberry dream, friends of pizza, area dots, hot dog water, regret, shrimp, dead grandma's house, cigarette ash, death.
Okay, I gotta stop that because it's a little bit crazy. I don't want to be symbolically like next thing I know.
It's too honestly, it was like it was very uncomfortable to listen. I think I put it on like first thing as soon as I got up in the morning. I was just like, "What's on?" And then I put it on. I was like, "God,
Yeah, if
from
y'all
America."
you could hear it though. I don't know.
Yeah, I could hear it. Okay, but no, it's good that we didn't listen to the whole thing. Anyways, I don't know if we'd get flagged or something, but yeah, it's super creepy. It's super scary. And then there's like hidden messages. And then, yeah, I love it. They like cut off the audio. It's like this, like, oh, we've got these flavors and chocolate chip. And then it cuts in these like hot dog water, cigarette ash.
34 years we have to close our doors. Isn't that about what they are, the age of them right now? Because like
They,
8, oh no, 8, nah.
well, I think they're
I
like
thought it was
40,
18 and 25. They're 25th
they're,
year reunion, right?
I don't know. They're
That's
like
40
in their
something.
40s. So that would have been when Ty was really little. So maybe like, okay, so I have a few thoughts.
43.
So obviously Ty, she's interwoven this like, I don't know, like the obvious. Okay, I don't even know. Was that even real? Like, did Van see the man with no eyes in the commercial? Because it doesn't seem like that's a very kid-friendly commercial, in my opinion. So, like, even though they're watching these old videos back, it was really weird when Ty was like, "Holy crap, did you see that? Are you seeing this?" And Van seems very kind of weirded out, but also it was like, okay, like I almost didn't believe that she was seeing the same thing that Ty was seeing. But what is weird is that when they had the visions, when they had the dream visions, like they saw the man with no eyes in there. And he's meant to be the embodiment of death, as the show creators have said. But it's really weird that, like, I don't know, she didn't have more of a reaction, or maybe she was putting the pieces together. But part of me just doesn't believe that she was seeing the same thing that Ty was seeing.
I mean, she tried to keep her from going manic and going down to the place right now. And then now we have, or she's working for Lottie again and trying to provoke Ty, which I kind of thought in my mind, I'm like, maybe there's an alter, like Van's trying to get her back, or Van's not really in love again. Cause like the moment that they have sex, you know, they took away Van's like virginity and her vessel virgin kind of powers and closeness. And so now she has to like come back in the virtual insanity. So maybe this is all kind of plays to try to crazy making behavior, which they do a lot. A lot of narcissists do crazy making behavior to get someone to appear wild or crazy, or to just push them over the edge. And it could be a bigger scheme of like the Walter Havisham, or somebody, you know, is so IT girl, maybe getting into there. Maybe Van put on some rerun of their favorite show and added this in here, you know, because she is the tape master. Is the Van behind the tapes? You know, like there's a whole lot you could go with that. And then she's over here when they go to the place. The first thing she says is, okay, now we're breaking the law. Now we're doing this. It's like she's setting herself up to kind of be caught, but at the same time, or setting Taissa up to be sabotaged more. Or also the whole boundary thing, and how Taissa is the person who builds the cabins, and she's supposed to be in charge of like the grounds and the boundaries and the governments. And we've talked about this before, and like the land, that's her thing as the senator, is the and then now here she is breaking into that. It would be interesting to see if they turn that place into something together. That would be so cute and romantic.
Oh my gosh. That would be so weird. Thais is definitely going to own this by the end. Holy crap. I didn't even think about that.
That's or they make the new While You Were Sleeping, or I don't know.
That's so funny. Yeah, that
would
be
Floats, a new Hope Float store.
A brand new ice cream, you know, Ozzy's ice cream. That is so funny. Okay, so I think that there was, okay, so when they go into the place, obviously it's all decrepit and run down. It's been run down and abandoned for years. They go in there and they're kind of like searching around for whatever. And then so they have that scene where they're basically they're peering through this broken window into another room, but the room's all disheveled and tossed up and broken, like windows and whatnot. And there is a jackal with a rabbit in its mouth. Now, we know Van, as we mentioned before, she's the Jack. She drew the Jack card. I think that's like really fitting for her personality. But it had the rabbit in its mouth, which is obviously kind of their symbolic, you know, go-to sacrificial animal in the whole series. So, and then they interpreted that, well, it wants more. Okay, I think that was such a great way to, I mean, this is a very interesting weavings of the, you know, of the two worlds, but we see kind of in that scene, going back to the two realities, it kind of is like that, because they're staring through this window, this broken window, into another room where they see the jackal and the wilderness and what it wants more. So it's kind of like a,
like Lottie too, staring out the window, and as their scene with Van staring out the window in the 90s in the first two seasons.
There's a lot of scenes of them staring through the windows, or staring, you know, going, or even in this episode going through the door, you know, going through the door into the other world. So I really think the other world, maybe it's not the Celtic other world, but some version of the other world is what we're kind of operating with here. And like the wilderness is sort of in the other world. The man with no eyes is like this deathly, like maybe he's a psychopomp escorting souls or what have you. You know, we see that he was present in that moment of Taissa's grandmother's birth, and that's kind of the origin point of Taissa's like fear of him.
But
why he's at the ice cream shop or on the ice cream shop sign or like the mascot or owner or something. I mean, that is very strange.
because death,
But
you gotta eat it right away, or else it melts. So, like, you gotta either face it or eat it, and you miss the opportunity. The ice cream truck man rolls by, you miss the opportunity. The kids are running after it. If you're not ready for it when it comes.
well, and it's also such like a tether to reality and to society versus, the wilderness where they have nothing. Like ice cream is such like a perfect, you know, like a perfect example of like advancement in society and it's cold, it's preserved cold, it's sugary, it's sweet, it's comforting, it's tasty, you just like makes you happy. It's kind of like the cold equivalent of like the hot chocolate that they have out in the
Well,
wilderness or
yeah,
what have you.
the
So
milk
it's
too, and then
yeah.
the milk from the animals, and you're getting like actual like lard or blood, and you're getting different sweeteners, you're getting different ingredients to
Mhm.
kind of create a concoction and potion. It also, like, again, that freezing thing representing in the underworld with the
Yeah,
milk.
freezer
But
out.
it is like, you miss it, and it's riding its bike. It's like the Wizard of Oz, she's riding her bike through, and you have to catch it when it comes, and it comes, for everyone. Ice cream comes in every
Yeah,
flavor, and whether you like the
it's
flavor or
usually
not, sometimes you can serve the flavor you don't like, other times you do, but like, can you, defeat the ice cream or not? Like, I don't know. It's really beautifully done, I think. And like, again, the flavor of the week, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be more.
this is interesting, Teresa, Jackie and the Jackal. That's an interesting thing. Yeah, I kind of equated it more with Van and like her, her cancer sort of um like stopped growing and what have you. So like and
Mhm.
she's the Jack and the Jackal, but maybe there's like an interlinking there that I'm not
Well,
seeing quite yet.
with the sacrifice of the waiter.
Um yeah, but with Van and Jackie, I don't know. It's interesting, but yeah, so I think that pretty much covers most everything for this week. I don't think we missed I mean, obviously we missed a lot. We didn't get into like, the fine details of everything, but we really went hard on the symbolism and I think that's what most of you guys are here for. So, if you have any last minute questions, drop them in the chat and otherwise we'll start wrapping it up and we'll be back next week. I'm really excited for next week's episode, getting to discuss that with you all because I think it's going to be really crazy. And from what kind of everyone has talked about, um we've talked about how most of the shots that are in the trailer are in these first few episodes that we've seen. So like what does the rest of the season hold is still kind of a mystery. And most of the actors when they've been interviewed, they're like, "Oh, what's your favorite episode of the season or what have you?" Most of them seem to go to that midpoint in the season. They're saying like episode 6, episode 7. Those are like and then the very last episode are really wild. So we're only at episode 4. It feels like it's just going too fast already, but it is what it is. But yeah, I'm just
Make your
excited. I
own
think the
kind.
next episode's gonna be really crazy. I think it's gonna be unpredictable. I think we kind of like had this idea in our heads, like, did Ty do that? Like, I don't know. I feel like I think I know what's gonna happen, but I have no clue what's actually gonna happen. So I'm very excited.
Well, make your own kind of music. Mm.
Sing your own special song. Yeah,
Yeah.
didn't those berries look so tasty, wild marjoram? They were just like big, fat, yummy, like warm summertime berries. I love it. I love
But
it.
like how she was doing it, like,
Oh,
like, oh,
you guys, I don't know if you know this about me, but my favorite summertime hobby is to pick berries. I like actually love picking
yeah.
berries. Mrs. Duncan the Tall knows this because I always am sending
I
her
have a
pictures.
picture of you.
I'll go out with my little berry basket. There's a
Let
you
me
guys are
see.
this is how yellow jackets I am.
Wait, show him a picture. Show him.
Specifically I go specifically to the cemetery to pick berries because nobody ever goes there and there's a ton of berries there. And so this is how yellow jackets I am. It's a good cemetery. It's sacred grounds, okay, on the island, all right?
Meanwhile, I'm like the prophetess that will never touch go to a dead body or on sacred grounds, on dead grounds.
You're like, I'm not
personally.
eating the berry stuff
I'm
from
not
your
eating your
house.
berries.
It's made
Never.
of bodies. No, see, this is the Simba. This is the wilderness. The wilderness chooses, these bodies, and they're buried, and then they flourish and you become nature again. It's just the cycle of life. All the earth is probably just like tons of dead bodies everywhere you go. So it's fine. We become the dust. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Anyways, that's what you guys come here for, right? Do I think Shauna's son will return? Very good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on if we see more of these death scenes, near-death experiences. I would like to see, like, maybe, I have my ultimate theory that I kind of think Shauna might die soon. And so hopefully I would love to see, like, if there was a death scene of Shauna, that it's like Jackie and her son just standing there waiting for her. But I don't know. That probably won't happen. That seems too sweet.
You think
Okay.
Shauna could be Pit Girl in the new time? Because she has a necklace right now, doesn't she? And
Maybe.
if they end up going back to the wild, I know we've talked about Callie being it, but like Callie sacrificing Shauna, we've also talked about that too.
Yeah. I don't
And
know.
then once she falls into the pit, then she like is reunited with her son. My baby.
Oh, yay.
Stop crying. My baby's not crying anymore.
Oh.
I know.
Yeah, that was
meant it or
really
not.
tragic. I won't even, I will not rewatch episode 206 Key. I don't know how we say it. Key? It's French.
What is
I
the
say it
kibosh? Should we look up that word kibosh meaning?
kibosh?
Yeah, Misty's talking
Kibosh and things. I think ice cream represents innocence, and tying the eyeless guy and death to it. That's interesting. Definitely interesting. How do we think Jackie or Lottie got Jackie's necklace? I don't know. It's a good question. It kind of depends. I mean, so Pit Girl is like the last we see of someone having it. Obviously, they pull her body out of the pit, so someone would very likely have removed the necklace after consuming her body. Where it goes from there is a question, that we don't have the answers to quite yet. Yeah, I don't know. Lottie was the one who removed the necklace from Jackie's body when they were going to put her on the funeral pyre, right? So maybe in her role, she like removes it from the victims or what have you. I don't know. It's a very good question. We're gonna find out. I'm certain of that, because obviously it's a mystery even to Shauna. She's like, "What? Like, what's happening? Why are you?" Okay, here we go. Mandy, are you back here? Okay.
Yeah, I was looking for my Bacchus crown, but I could only find Persephone, and I just broke it.
Oh no!
Maybe not.
Perfect.
Yeah, but
We'll fix it.
it's around here. I think I wore it last time I was partying, so it's probably like some random place.
Kibosh means to put the end to something immediately. Yeah, exactly. All right. Let's see. Do you think Aquila will live to be an adult? Do you think she will be the first real antler queen, horns and all? No, I don't. Personally, I don't think she will. I think we're going to lose Aquila, and it's going to be a very upsetting situation for all. I have a feeling it's going to be out Lottie's hands, and that's going to be the whole her delusions have killed people. Because Aquila, but because Aquila, she's eaten food of the underworld, and it's the same with Mari. So I think that there is something to that. All right, Mrs. Duncan the Tall. Isn't it interesting Misty invited Shauna to the bakery because of the scones, berries? Yeah. They're from Vermont. Yeah, I think that was something to do with sort of the Demeter, like agriculture goddess, symbolism going on.
Wait, which question is this?
Luna, what was your question here? Let's find you. Give me just a moment here.
I'll find Here we go.
Okay. Do the sacrifices give benefit to one yellow jacket or all, and how is it decided? Um,
I think it's all, because they're like, so in the back times, like in a temple, like in the Bible and Judaism and like this old prophetic stuff, when you were to give your all, the or give whatever you had, whether it be 2 pennies, like the widow with the 2 pennies, or the men with money and prosperity, and they only share, like there are people who share all they have, and then there are people who share their extra, right?
mhm.
So, but either way, the offering used to be put as like a trumpet bell, and they would go in, and it was like a bell. So we talked about the bellis, the God's bell, and things like that too. But you would put your offering like how everybody put their offerings in the bowls before, like some sort of bowl, whatever it is, and how everybody worked together for the bowl of food. But you put whatever you have and everyone shares, and it gets distributed to the people who are needy. And sometimes people have more, sometimes people have less, but as long as you're offering to the commonwealth and the common good of your church or your temple, whatever it is. And it kind of reminded me of that, because they do benefit for all should the right temple leader be established. And I think that's what Lottie does. I think with this whole thing with Aquila too, like she's gonna think it's gonna benefit all, but like again, that's Lottie deciding, not all deciding. Like
Mhm.
I think we're gonna get justice with Coach Ben though, because all of them will make a decision together, hopefully judicially. We'll see.
Well, that's a good question. 12 angry girls plus one Travis, and I have a feeling. Well, I have a video coming out this week. We're going to talk about it, but I have a feeling um Travis might end up being the deciding vote.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
he's the king, because I mean antlers technically are for guys, for male deers, but it.
exactly. And we already have established him as the stag king going back to Doom coming. He is our stag king. So,
But I also think
keep an eye
though,
out for
if
that
you
video. I'm really excited to share it with you guys.
if you do sacrifice something selfishly, that might have its repercussions. So
Yeah,
it
with whatever
chooses,
your
only it
intention
decides.
is behind it, and I think that's something we're gonna see, like, especially with Shauna and Callie, it's like, what's the intention behind what you're doing? And that's kind of how also we're viewing, like, the necklace, because Lottie said, it's not what you thought that it was or whatever, and Shauna has a very distinctive idea of what that necklace represents. Lottie clearly is open to other ideas. So it should be very interesting to see where it goes.
And that's why King David was chosen, because he didn't have intentions that were selfish. He had intentions that were pure to help his family and to help to he was a shepherd, saving lost sheep.
Yep.
Do
Yep.
you leave the 99 and search for that one, or do you say no, I'm not going to search for her like Shauna?
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
kind of actually what happened is, when you're sheep, there's like the whole parable about how, they will leave the 99 sheep. A good shepherd will do that to search for that one, because that one life matters just as much as the rest.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. And Shauna's like, no, I'm not looking for her.
Yeah.
So
F. Mari.
she is drowning.
Yeah. Good point. Good point. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. I think we've rambled on quite long enough, but we will be back next week for even more ramblings. Can you believe it? We can just go all day. Mandy, is there anything you wanted to share before we wrap it up?
Yeah, go in peace, my beloved. And, let's do something. Let's not be selfish and save the tribes and go out and do something for the greater good of us all.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And don't go digging too deep into any coal seams this week.
Yeah.
Guys.
Do you want to invite people? Are we going to do it Wednesday or Thursday on your Patreon page?
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. We're gonna do a patron, exclusive for. Sorry, my computer. For the bracket for the March Madness stuff. So the Wilderness Madness. Thank you, Luna. I'm glad you were here as well. So yeah, we'll have that coming up, and I'll let you guys know. Of course, if you want to make sure and catch that, us, sort of setting the brackets, definitely check out my Patreon or my channel memberships, where you can join and help support the channel. And channel members also get access to exclusive emojis, Yellowjackets themed emojis, including the Queen of Hearts card and the wilderness symbol. So definitely check that out. And of course, we do even more stuff on Patreon behind the scenes, with exclusive photos and things like that and early access. So, but other than that, I think we're about ready to wrap it all up. Thank you guys so much for being here and spending your Mondays with us. We are very excited to be back with you next week to discuss episode 4 and all the craziness that goes along with it. So take care of yourselves this week. Watch out for, hidden pockets of methane gases, and also for speeding minivans cutting across parks. And other than that,
Take
thank
your
you
breaks.
guys, and Jackie out.
Jackie out.